Chiefs draw the Texans, but what's different this time from the last time these two teams met, which wasn't even a month ago? Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. Thanks for joining us. We have a slightly different look. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know and give us your feedback down below in the YouTube comments. We are still free and available every single day of the week, 5 days a week, plus for you all the time on every platform, everywhere. You can just get like sub and hit that bell everywhere here, YouTube, audio platforms, everything, everywhere you can get a show. We're going to have a great show today because it is starting to look like a divisional round, and we're going to go through it. This is Chris Clark, KC Chiefs Corner. You can find his work on the quarterbacks, the cap, all the business wranglings over at KC Chiefs Corner. Go check that out. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL33.com and RGRfootball.com. Appreciate it if you guys check those out. Go get subbed on NFL33 because my rants are up and rolling at this point. And we have a lot to talk about here. The Texans. What could go wrong? We've seen this team later in the show. What do they have to be on their toes about? That's coming up. Before that, the defense. It's coming back. It's rested. A couple of guys might be available for this game that didn't necessarily play last time. And we're going to start today with probably the number one thing is what this Chiefs offense can do and what it has available to do against the Texans. A lot of what they saw last time, it's a little bit different on the opposite side of the ball. Now, if you want that much more information than we usually give you on the show, you can always catch us at our outlets, and you can always get more on Locked On at the text line at 816-357-8781. That is the local line for our Locked On Chiefs supporters every single day. Listeners, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make another Locked On show your next one. So when you take a look at what happened last time, which was just the 21st of December, I think it's a real advantage the Chiefs have played this entire playoff field, and a lot of them fairly recently, including the Texans. It was a horrific day out for Tank Dell. You can't really powder or sugarcoat that in any way. You can powder coat it probably, but you can't sugarcoat it. And it was terrible to see happen, but he was a focal point of their offense. When you go back and you look at the weapons that they had versus the weapons that the Chiefs had, they had just gotten Pops back. Hollywood had just started to come around. It seemed like it was both kind of incubating. Since then, I feel like the Chiefs have the advantage. We should see Hollywood. We should see Potts and Hunt going back and forth. Obviously, Nuke gets another bite at the apple from a team that he used to play for. What's the biggest standout for you going into this week?
There's so many different things in this. Hollywood Brown makes such a difference in the offense and how this offense looks. To me, I think that's probably the biggest standout, and that's going to be the biggest things for the Chiefs. Whether or not Dell is going to make a huge difference for the Texans and what they can do against Kansas City, we'll see. I do think that really hurts them, but obviously they've had a couple of weeks to kind of get past that. It wasn't something that they were dealing with in game, and you never like to see injuries. I wish that it would be something where he could possibly be back to play next season. I'm afraid it's going to be more of a long-term thing than that based on what it seemed to be. So we'll see on that. But Hollywood Brown really changes his offense. It changes what they can do on offense. It changes how they're able to run their offense. It changes what Worthy has to do and what he can do in this offense. But let's not take a backseat to, or let's not say that the running game is going to be anything better than, or anything worse than what it already was. And what I mean by that is Kareem Hunt getting basically 2 weeks off after the season he had and the pounding he took through the first part and the middle part of the season is huge for this team. Pop getting back to the place where he was before his injury, getting a couple of games to try to get up to speed and get an idea as to where he was and get his body physically ready for the playoffs and what he's going to have to do in the playoffs is huge for this team. And then, I know we're talking about the guys that are more of the offensive weapons, but I still think Samaje Perine is a weapon that we don't talk about enough. He's going to be a guy that's going to make a play at some point in one of these games in the playoffs that is going to change it for the Chiefs. And it's going to be something that you look back and you say, thank you, Denver, for being idiots at the beginning of the season.
Well, when you take a look at it, Perine didn't run the ball against the Texans last time, but he was a perfect 3 for 3 for 50 yards. made some conversions. Exactly. He was that guy in that spot, and that's a really good point. Is we don't talk enough about him. Noah Gray's been up and down all season. Had some games where he really had to shine, some games where he could just be kind of like laying back a little bit. I do think this is another aspect for him to try and attack. And I think, honestly, the evolution that we've seen since even December 21st when they last played really has come on, and now we might even get Hendershot into the action because I think he's put in some good snaps.
And I would argue that for Gray, it's not necessarily that he hasn't had good games. I think it's more of just you look at the weapons that they have and the different you only have so many balls to go around. I mean, that's the reality. Travis Kelce started stepping his game up later in the season when DeAndre Hopkins stepped into the role and actually started taking some coverages away from Kelce to an extent. So I do think that it all plays. It's all it's all part of a big picture, and it's just all a melting pot. I mean, the reality is that Hollywood Brown in this offense changes what DeAndre Hopkins has to do, changes what Worthy has to do, changes what Kelce, Gray have to do, and even Hendershot to an example, because you're talking about probably not having Hendershot on the field for as many snaps when you have Brown, because you're probably not going to go to a lot of three tight end sets. So it changes everything bringing Hollywood in. But you look at how this offense evolved throughout the season. DeAndre Hopkins took a different role, took on a more clear role towards the end of the season where he was Patrick Mahomes' go-to guy, almost a Travis Kelce level type go-to guy at times as well, and trusting him with some throws that he only trusted Travis to catch. So this offense is going to be a lot of fun in the playoffs. And the most fun part about it is that Andy Reid pulls things out that he hasn't used all season. And we talked about this before, but mainly because Hollywood Brown hasn't been around. But not only that, because now he is not saving for anything anymore. This is the playoffs. You did everything to get here. You saved things to get here. Now you're here, and now it's all going to come out. And I guarantee you, Patrick and Travis and DeAndre and probably Hollywood and probably Worthy and all those guys have been in practice saying, what is it that we can do that's going to be fun? What extra plays can we create that's going to be fun? And it may drive you and I crazy, especially if it doesn't work, but they're going to have fun, and it's going to be it's going to be exciting to see on Saturday.
Is there going to be a ring around the rosy huddle this time?
I don't know that they pull it out against the Texans, but it could be something similar. I'm going to be surprised. I would put the trick play type thing at 1.5, and I'm going to take the over.
Okay.
Maybe not a direct trick play, a quarterback or a wide receiver pass or something like that. But wildcat I count as a trick play type thing. All those different things. I'm taking the over at 1.5, and I think that it could even go as high as maybe over at 2.5, just because I think that this is where they start separating and start showing things that they haven't done all season, because it's twofold. Not only are you going to be able to show it now, but you also are looking at and saying, okay, now you guys have to prepare for that the next week. And I guarantee you they have more than that we're going to see, not going to see.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like the bag's full. They're going to get into it when they can get into it, but it's going to work. But the defense has to play a significant role as well. Where is it at and what's it going to look like? It's coming up next. This message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes are waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back at all. Then you're waiting, wondering, worrying some more to see just exactly what it's going to be. Now Taxes is matching you with a TurboTax expert to put your taxes up as soon as today. An expert who gives you their taxes, their undivided attention, so that they can work on your return while you get real-time updates on the progress and you can get back to your day. The expert will find every deduction possible, file every single form, every investment, everything for 100% accuracy. All you can do is get the most money back guaranteed. That's what they're for. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert at TurboTax.com. Only available TurboTax live, full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. A lot of fun when you start talking about the possibilities, because this team was, I think, getting a little bit tired on the defensive side when they last saw the Texans. Chris Jones obviously missed some time. He should be back this week. You might even get a chance to see Jalen Watson. We don't know. We don't have a status probably until tomorrow, or maybe even a little bit after that, as they try to keep things a little bit under wraps. But that's two significant players that could be on the field that weren't on the field last time they were there. Not to mention the fact that the last outing against the Broncos was mostly backups. There was a lot of rotation, but this defense looks to be well rested and should be able to turn it up a notch or three against the Texans.
Agreed. And I will say, we didn't mention this the last segment, and we should have. Michael Hardman also could be back. We'll see. Marlon, I'll let you say his name because I always butcher. Yeah, went to IR. He will not be playing in this game. Lost him for the season. That stinks. The reality, though, and I'm trying to be as generous as I can, the reality is likely if Chris Jones plays, he wasn't going to play. He wasn't even going to suit up. So stinks that he's not going to be available, but he really helped them during the Denver game, and so we'll see what happens with him going forward. But you're right. I mean, Chris Jones should be back for this game. Minihu got snaps. More snaps than I expected him to get against the Broncos because I think that they realize he's still not where they want him to be, and they need to get him as ready as they possibly can for the playoffs. We'll see if we get Jalen Watson back. If they get Jalen Watson back, to me, that completely changes what this defense can do. So I'm excited about that. I'm hopeful that happens. Defense should be good to go. I do think that they have a lot of players that will be ready to go. And, you look the linebacker level, Chanel got a couple of snaps against Denver, but not a ton. He's going to be good to go. And then Bolton and Tranquil didn't play at all. So you're going to have a pretty ready to go front seven. And I think that's going to be good for the Chiefs being able to stop the run, which is going to be important against the Houston Texans, because if you make it a one, to where they have to a one-dimensional effort on their part, I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to step up and be able to do it. He did have some good plays against the Chargers, but I don't think he's going to do it against this Chiefs defense.
I think you're probably right. That's going to be more on George and Chris and Charles and getting after the passer. But I want to flip it on its edge. Instead of the front, let's look at the back of the defense, because I think two guys that are going to be integral to this. And we're going to give you the full breakdown on Friday, folks, of our full game preview, including our predictions and what we expect to happen, as well as the crossover show that's going to give you the inside intel. And Matt Derrick's going to be with us tomorrow, so don't miss that. When I go back and look at the first game, the first meeting here a little bit over a month ago, a little bit less than a month ago, the guy that confounded me, that frustrated me at the time, it was not Tank Dell. His speed is a quality that you have to prepare for. He's going to get his. It's Dalton Schultz that really bothered me, because I don't feel that there's anything more than a slight leverage advantage for him. So the two players that I think we've seen more come on from Jaden Hicks, and obviously Justin Reed got to get some rest here. He should be back in the lineup, getting both those guys fired up early and possibly doing something different with them in order to deal with the tight end. I do think that's going to be part of the equation. Now, last time, Nico Collins went for 60 yards. So you feel like you have the blueprint to do that. Which do you think is right now more what the Chiefs should be worried about, Schultz or Collins?
Well, it has to be Collins. You look at this, and he is the biggest threat, in my opinion, for the Texans is Collins. Schultz is a great tight end. Great is probably a little too far. He's a good tight end. Yeah. And he is a threat, and he can beat you, and the Chiefs have shown susceptibility to the tight end this season, so I definitely think that that's an issue that they have to get figured out, and they have to be able to try to take him away as best they can. But I will also say this. If Watson comes back, how much of a bigger deal is it for Kansas City? Because then you're not trying to force Chamari Connor into a role that he doesn't really fit well at the nickel corner position, because you can maybe move somebody else inside. Maybe you move Trent McDuffie inside, and you go with Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams as your outside corners, and then Chamari Connor could go back to playing safety and doing other things. And maybe he's a guy that can step in and try to help with Dalton Schultz a little bit. So to me, Watson coming back could help in multiple different ways, because Chamari Connor should be back this game. Obviously, he played against the Denver Broncos, so he's back from his concussion. And he is a chess piece just as much, and actually probably even more so than Jaden Hicks. But I do think the Chiefs have been using him wrong all season.
I think that's fair. Trying to make what their needs match their personnel. I think the guy that, well, two people really, but the guy primarily that we need to watch for that didn't do much, I don't even know how many snaps he might have played against the Chiefs last time, John Mechie might not have played at all because didn't show up on the stat sheet. Going to be somebody that they're going to have to contend with this time out in place of Tank Dell. And I do think that you have that, and Shamar plays into that scenario. So getting that experience back on the field with Reed and Connor does have some benefits. But at the end of the day, I think that the Texans are going to have to run the ball if they want to be able to effectively play action and effectively get their receivers open. I think Nico Collins needs a little bit more time to get into his route than the average guy. So I believe that the run's going to have to come first. And that makes me think that you can drop Jaden Hicks not only into coverage, but in against the run and try to move him around. And maybe he actually becomes the chess piece that we've been talking about since the preseason.
And that'd be a lot of fun. I like what I've seen from Hicks. He is a thumper. He's a guy that likes to get downhill. He likes to hit. That's exactly what you need from a guy that's going to be trying to play downhill all game long. And that's exactly what he would need to do in this game. I am going to be very surprised if Spagnuolo doesn't have an answer for Joe Mixon and what that Texans running game wants to do. I do think that you look at how the Chiefs have played all season long, and they have basically shut down the run. I'm not going to say they've shut it down completely, but they've basically shut down the run against most teams this year. And even against the Texans, they didn't even allow 100 yards on the ground. The last time they played the Texans, 14 rushes for 57 yards for Joe Mixon, and C.J. Stroud had 2 for 23. So you're looking at a total of like 70 yards there. 80 yards there. And C.J. Stroud is a quarterback, so I don't really count that as rushing yards. I mean, yeah, it's rushing yards, but it's not the same because it's more scramble drill at that point. So to me, I think, you look at this game, and if it comes down to the Chiefs stopping the run, I feel great about this defense being able to do that. And without Tank Dell having to run your offense through Nico Collins, who I think is legitimately a guy that could possibly be a very good wide receiver, maybe even a star wide receiver in the next year or two, because I think the skill set's there. You have to have more than that. And Dalton Schultz can do a little bit for you, and John Mechie can maybe do a little bit for you, but none of those guys really scare you. And it's when you start looking at this Chiefs team and this Chiefs offense, and you start talking Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce and all of those, you don't have that list at the Texans, and that's a problem. When your defense is good. And that's the thing that didn't make sense to me with the Chargers a little bit. The Chargers have a good defense, and they weren't able to stop the Texans. So obviously there's a little bit more to it than can they get it going again, because the Texans were able to get it going against the Chargers.
Yeah, it's all matchup dependent, and we'll have more for as we get closer, but we're going to do something a little bit different. Just scenarios. What do you got to watch for? What could go wrong? We're going to ask that question coming up next. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, pretty much anything, even comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement is absolutely unbelievable, especially if it's Zach Bryan or somebody that you really dig. Right now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events, whether it's a new feature, and this one really works, Game Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff. You only get the incredible deals on the great seats that you're looking for. You don't have to waste time searching for thousands of tickets on and off, back and forth. I love this, and I've used it most recently on a comedy show. We did something over New Year's. It was great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That'll get you $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I like it when we get in a little bit of the hypothetical scenarios. So it's been a bit. There's rust. There's going to be rust. That's normal, and I think it's a good thing for this team because the rest is certainly worth the bit of rust. But What do you got to be on guard for? If you were going to answer that question, what's the number one thing that they got to watch out for? What could go wrong?
To me, this has been the key to the Chiefs' season all year. Take care of the ball. They come out, they are rusty, they are not taking care of the ball. And I'm not talking about just Patrick and not making some throws that he shouldn't. I'm talking about wide receivers and running backs holding the ball up, high and tight and making sure it can't get punched out. Returners holding the ball high and tight. Don't give them short fields. Don't give them the opportunity to be in this game, because the reality is that this should not be a close game. This should be a 2-score game. We'll get into the predictions later in the week, but this should be a 2-score game. This Chiefs team is that much better than the Texans, and they have the ability to put up 30, 35 points if they come out and they play well on offense. But that's the key. The only way you play well on offense is you hold on to the ball. And if they don't hold on to the ball, that becomes a problem. So if you turn the ball over and you lose the turnover margin by 2 or 3, you can easily lose this game.
Yeah, it is certainly a possibility. I agree with you. I also feel like the immediacy that we saw the last time Patrick Mahomes was on the field, it felt like they were starting to round into shape about how to attack and how to be more aggressive, not by looking for the shot every play, but by taking what's there and surgically annihilating someone. And I think that's got to remain in the game plan. They have to come out and attack every single level of the Texans defense. I think in particular, Patrick's got to be on his game. If he gets into that waiting and hoping something's going to come open deep because, hey, now we're taking all the restrictions off, and you got Hollywood and X out there. He's looking for the home run. I worry that will distract from what the game plan ought to be, and that is to just attack as brutally efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and it goes beyond that. He needs to get the ball out quick, just like you said, and that's one of the biggest keys. If he gets the ball out quick and doesn't allow the pass rush to get there, because the Texans do have a pass rush that you have to be worried about, that plays into how this game should go for the Chiefs. And the big question that we don't have an answer to is who's playing what. I don't know. Is Joe Tooney going to be left tackle? Is Joe Tooney going to be left guard? Is DJ Humphries going to be left tackle? Is he going to play? I mean, right? That's where we are right now. We don't know. And that's a little bit of a problem. Like, I get to the point, I get the thought process that we don't absolutely have to know, but I'm sure the Chiefs know. I'm sure they know who's going to be where, and I'm sure we won't find out until game day who's going to be where, because that's how Andy Reid does things, and that's fine. The reality is that they've had all this time. DJ Humphries has played a full game. He's now going to be as good as he can possibly be going into the playoffs. If you're going to play him, great. If you're not going to play him, you got to figure out how to get past it. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with it, but that offensive line needs to be better than it has been in several games this year. And if you keep Patrick Mahomes upright and he doesn't get sacked 5 times in this game, this is a game that, like I said, the Chiefs offense should take over, and they could score 30 to 35 points and be an offense that we haven't seen all season, because now you've finally gotten time, and they've been practicing. They had time off where they weren't playing games, but they've been practicing. They had some actual real time off to not have to play, but they've been practicing enough, and they've got the experience. They've got the timing down. This is a Mahomes type situation. We kind of talked about this yesterday. You said it yourself. The other game is going to feature 2 guys that are going for the MVP, and they don't even have the best QB in football in that game. Patrick Mahomes, this is his time to shine, and this is when he normally shines. This is what I'm expecting, and I'm expecting a big game from him.
And I'm sure he's written it down. that's
I guarantee it. Yeah, that meme of him taking notes.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely,
guaranteed.
For me, the last thing that could go wrong, though, the Chiefs need to guard against. It's not the first 15. They map that out. They have what they need every time, whether it's hitting one note that they know that they want to attack, or whether it's trying to explore and find what they want to attack. They do, and they accomplish that in the first 15. My question is 16 through 30. That's the play call that I need to make sure that if I'm the Chiefs, that I'm not letting myself get random at that point. I would almost map that partially out. I don't think it has to be as stringent as the first 15, but for Andy and Patrick, having had some time off here and having a team that has some new confidence after beating the Chargers, I do feel like you have to extend what your longer execution plan is and not just start adapting at play 16.
So what I will say is this. I get where you're coming from, and I don't think I disagree with you. I think that that's a very valid point. I think that they have issues in this season that you can go back and see. The first 15 did really well, and then all of a sudden they went away from stuff the rest of the game. And you're just sitting there going, why? Why are you going away from it? It was working. Keep going back to it. Keep using it. So they definitely need to work on that, and they need to get better doing that. They need to – I also think that part of what you saw during the season is also a little bit different than what you're going to see in the playoffs, because I'm not going to say that they didn't scout teams the same, but what I will say is I don't think that they drew on everything that they should have, or that they maybe wanted to draw on, because I do think that they held stuff back. And it goes beyond Andy. It goes beyond Hollywood Brown not being out there. It's Andy Reid holding stuff back for the playoffs. It's knowing that as long as you get to the playoffs, all that matters is you get there. And now you take advantage of whatever you can when you're there. So I do think there's some of that. To me, though, the thing that could go wrong is they come out flat. And that is a problem. I mean, they've done it before. They haven't really done it in playoff games, other than if you go back to the game against the Texans, one of Patrick's first big playoff games, they came out and 24-0. And then obviously by halftime it was over. But obviously you don't want to see that. And I don't expect it. This team is so much different than it was against the Texans the first time, because they have so much experience, and it's beyond Patrick. It's beyond Travis Kelce. I mean, you have it down into some of the guys that have been here for 2 or 3 years. Just because they've been here for 2 or 3 years, they've got at least 4 or 5 games of playoff experience that they were going to be pulling from. This isn't going to be too big for them. They know what they're getting themselves into. The rookies don't, but I'm not worried about the rookies, because there's not a rookie on this roster. Xavier Worthy has played a decent role, but there's not a rookie on this roster that's playing a pivotal role that I think that this game is going to be too big for. So to me, the other thing is do they come out flat? But then the other question is, you have some moving pieces when you start talking about the defense. And yeah, you have guys coming back from injury. You have guys that are getting healthier and whatnot. Is the defense going to be back where it was when they were flying around almost a month ago?
It needs to be. Because
when you start talking about being off for so long, that changes how your timing, that changes everything. They have to be back to where they were when they're playing the Steelers and when they're playing, the Texans the first time and the Browns. Their defense needs to be at that level. And if you go back to like early in the season sometimes, or in preseason games when you haven't really played games, sometimes you come out flat. Sometimes you don't have that energy. This team knows how to have it, but they have to have the energy from the start and from the kickoff. Don't give the Texans a chance to build a lead, even though you seem to do okay when teams get double-digit leads on you.
That's the hard part, right? You know you're okay, but
you're sitting there. It's like you don't normally want to do this, but then you're okay. You make it work. So
it's tougher on us than them, I think. What do you guys think?
Sure.
We'd love to know. Put it down in your comments. Tomorrow, Matt Derrick's going to walk us through what he knows and what he's seeing out of the facility. So don't miss that. Our man on the beat. And we're going to have a ton for you. For right now, make Locked On NFL your next stop. I think you guys will really dig it. My old partner, Tyler Rowland's out there doing his crazy thing. You're going to get a couple of them a day, including Tony Wiggins in the afternoon for some real NFL talk. So find the Locked On podcast, either you on YouTube or anywhere you get your listenable podcasts on audio. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out one of them. And thanks for having a good day. We are on the road to the divisional round, and we are excited. Join us tomorrow with Matt Derrick, and then the crossover that Chris will have done, and we'll preview for you on Friday. Don't miss any of it. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next time.